Selamat datang di kampus Institut Teknologi Kesehatan Cendekia Utama Kudus. ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus merupakan transformasi dari ITK Cendekia Utama dan Akbar Krida Husada Kudus. ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus adalah kampus terbaik dan paling tepat untuk mewujudkan cita-cita menjadi tenaga kesehatan profesional. Kampus yang fokus dalam pengembangan sumber daya manusia di bidang kesehatan. ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus memiliki jurusan kesehatan dengan semua program studi yang telah terakreditasi B. Program studi yang ada: program studi yang segera dibuka. Saat ini, ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus telah membuka pendaftaran bagi calon mahasiswa baru untuk tahun akademik 2023-2024. Pendaftaran mahasiswa baru melalui jalur program prestasi dan jalur reguler. Jalur program seleksi siswa berprestasi atau PSSB. Syarat pendaftaran PSSB: keuntungan pendaftaran PSSB. Jalur reguler. Syarat pendaftaran jalur reguler: jadwal pendaftaran. Beasiswa bagi calon mahasiswa baru. Pendaftaran dapat dilakukan melalui online di pendaftaran offline bertempat di kampus ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus di Jalan Lingkar Kudus Padi, kilometer 5, Desa Jepang, Kecamatan Monjobo, Kabupaten Kudus, Jawa Tengah. Mendapatkan dukungan penuh dari Yayasan Islam An-Nabil Kudus, ITK Cendekia Utama memiliki tenaga pengajar yang profesional dengan latar belakang berpendidikan S3 dan S2. Memiliki fasilitas yang sangat baik dengan kelas ber-AC, laboratorium keperawatan, laboratorium farmasi, laboratorium kesehatan masyarakat, taman baca, perpustakaan, home theater, aula, masjid, lapangan olahraga, dan fasilitas pendukung lainnya. Untuk menggali potensi yang dimiliki oleh mahasiswa, terdapat organisasi badan eksekutif mahasiswa dan unit kegiatan mahasiswa seperti seni dan olahraga, pecinta alam, KSR, dan unit kegiatan mahasiswa lainnya.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sehat sejahtera untuk kita semuanya. Perkenalkan, saya Imam Subuhi, alumni Prodi Keperawatan, Nurse, Institut Ilmu Kesehatan Cendekia Utama Kudus. Institut Ilmu Cendekia Utama Kudus memberikan warna yang indah dalam hidup saya, memberikan satu peningkatan pengetahuan, pengalaman, serta kompetensi keperawatan yang luar biasa. Didukung dengan tenaga pendidik dan pengajar yang handal dan profesional, mencetak tenaga kesehatan yang handal, siap kerja, membangun kesehatan masyarakat di Indonesia. Oleh karena itu, mari bergabung.
Siapa kita? Integritas bersamaku, kita bisa, pasti bisa. Tepuk tangan berilah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, honorable speakers, and esteemed delegates, good morning and welcome to the Cendekia International Conference on Health and Technology 2023. Under the inspiring theme of strengthening global health resilience, it is an absolute pleasure to have each and every one of you here today, representing a diverse range of backgrounds, expertise, and experiences. Allow me to extend my gratitude to our esteemed guests who have graced us with their eminent presence today. Mr. Ilham Syobudi, Askep Amkes, as Director of Cendekia Utama Kudus Health Technology Institute, Profesor Dr. Rerum Naturalium, Apoteker Triana Hertini, SSI MSI, representing Pharmacy Department of Gajah Mada University, Indonesia. Profesor Dr. Syarifah Izzatwan Puteh, representing Public Health Department of Kebangsaan Malaysia University. Mrs. Janet Seman, PhD, a Senior Medical Education Consultant at Child and Family Health International, CFHI USA. And last but not least, the heads of departments, heads of study programs, lecturers, students, and invited guests who have attended this event. I would like to express our sincere appreciation for the support and guidance provided by our distinguished guests. Your willingness to share your expertise through keynote speeches, panel discussions, and interactive sessions is a testament to your commitment to the betterment of our global community. In the name of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise and thanks are due to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings be upon His Messenger, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who brought us out of darkness into light. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to stand before you as your Master of Ceremonies for this momentous occasion. My name is Sekar Kinanti, and it is my privilege to guide you through this captivating event. Without further ado, let me present to you our agenda of this morning. The first one is the opening, the second one, singing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, the third, opening speech, the fourth, photo session, the fifth, material presentation and panel discussion. The last one is the closing. The first agenda is the opening. To begin this event, let us recite the Tasmiyah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. May Allah bless this conference and make it a success. We will now proceed to the second agenda of our conference, singing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Please rise and join us in showing our respect and appreciation for our host country. Hadirin dimohon berdiri. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Hadirin dimohon duduk kembali. The third agenda is the opening speech. The speech will be delivered by the Rector of Cendekia Utama Kudus Health Technology Institute, Mr. Ilham Syobudi, Askep MKes. We are honored to have him here with us today. The floor is yours, sir.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Best wishes to all of us. Good morning to the honorable speakers, Dr. Syarifah Isyad Wan Puteh, Profesor Dr. APT Triana Hartiani, SSI, MSc, MSc, Mrs. Janet Saman, PhD, the respected academic community of ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus, and all of conference participants. ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus is one of institution in Central Java. It was founded since 20 years ago. It has 3 departments. Those are Department of Nursing, Pharmacies, and Public Health. Our vision is to become a superior and internationally competitive university. To realize the vision, we organize this international conference. Thank you very much and welcome to speakers. We are waiting for the sharing of knowledge from the speakers in this activity. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us this country must have strong system prevent disease transmission. The Indonesian government launched a good resilience system to prevent the next pandemic. And we want to be part of this global health resiliences according to our position as educational institution with the task of carrying out Tridharma. For information, the participants of this international conference and the academic community, professional health workers like nurse, pharmacists, and public health, who is attending, participating via Zoom and live streaming. We also wish to thank all the committee who have organized the international conference. We hope that this conference will have beneficial impact on the participant. That's all for my speak. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Ilham akan menyampaikan semangat pemulihan pandemik COVID. Pak Ilham nanti menyampaikan stronger together, stronger, recovery together, recovery stronger. Dijawab yes. Oke? Are you ready? Bismillah. Recovery together, recovery stronger. Yes. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, for the fourth agenda, we will have a photo session. To all the distinguished guests, honorable speakers, and esteemed delegates are requested to be prepared and smile for the camera. Let's begin from the first slide. Please look at the camera. 3, 2, 1. The second slide. 3, 2, 1. The next. 3, 2, 1. Now we have reached the main part of the event, which consists of the material presentation and panel discussion. The moderator will take over the session from this point. But before that, I would like to introduce the moderator of today's conference. Mrs. Sri Hindriyastuti, ASCOP, Nurse MN, Education Background, Master of Nursing at Flinders University, Australia in 2016, Bachelor of Nursing at Diponegoro University at 2010, Short Courses, CLIL, Content Language Integrated Learning, from Indonesia Australia Language Foundation. The second, Culture and Language Short Courses in Ohio, America. Award, Best Oral Presenter in 2018, Java International Nursing Conference by AIPNE 2018. Best Category of Lecturer with Intellectual Property Achievement in 2019. Current position, Mrs. Sri Hindriyastuti is a lecturer at the Mental Health Nursing Department, Indonesia, and in recent times also serves as co-founder of empowerment-based sociopreneur program at Shams Indonesian Handicraft, empowering more than 400 women in Pati District, Coordinator of Social Department of RKI, Indonesian Family Program. Her research interests, mental health, women, and palliative nursing. The book written by her are The Roller Coasters, Scholarship Hunters, Buku Ajar Keperawatan Jiwa, and Keperawatan Jiwa Bencana. To Mrs. Sri Hindriyastuti, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Sekar. To inform you all, Sekar is a young, talented student here in Cendekia Utama Kudus Health and Technology Institute. Thank you very much, Sekar. And dear ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please, as the seminar will begin soon. Please have a good seat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. the Honorable Rector of Cendekia Utama Kudus Health and Technology Institute, the honorable speakers, and they are all participants attending this conference. I'm Surindra Stuti. I'm a young lecturer of mental health nursing program at Cendekia Utama Kudus Health and Technology Institute here in Kudus. And I'm as a moderator of the seminar for today's event. And it is also an honor and great pleasure for me as Indonesian to welcome you all here in Kudus directly. And I would like to inform you that, especially for our great speakers, that Kudus is a beautiful city. It is located in northern part of Java Island. Please give applause for our beautiful city. And it's well known as a holy city, as this is a center, one of a center of Islamic studies here in Java, Indonesia. And of course, we have some favorite special foods here, and we call it as a Jenang Kudus. So everyone who have a chance to come here directly in Kudus, maybe you can try later for Jenang Kudus. Jenang Kudus is such a sticky rice cake with the brown color. So it's like a chocolate, but little bit different in taste. Okay, and I'm very pleased to see you here and welcome all of you to this international seminar. And this seminar is conducted in hybrid settings. Therefore, we would like to welcome all participants who are joining us virtually through Zoom. And we are here today to discuss how to strengthen global health resilience from different perspectives and how to face future challenges, especially after COVID-19. Therefore, we have three knowledgeable speakers who already joined with us. The first one, Professor Triana Hertiani from Universitas Gadjah Mada, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. The second one would be Professor Sarifa Izzatwan Puteh from Kebangsaan Malaysia University. And the third one, Janet Saman, PhD from Child and Family Health International, CFHI, USA. And our panel will be in panel for the seminar. For the first one, I would like to welcome Prof. Triana Hertiani. Hello, Prof. Triana Hertiani, are you with me? Let me check first. Hello, Professor. Welcome to Kudus, Professor Triana. Although it is through Zoom, I hope one day you can visit Kudus directly. Maybe the voice clear. Is the voice clear? Clear, okay. Okay, first of all, I would like to read the resume of Professor Triana Hertiani. Professor Triana Hertiani come from Pharmacy Department of Gadjah Mada University, Indonesia, and will deliver the presentation with the theme Strengthening Global Health Resilience from Pharmacy Perspective. Okay, till we are waiting for the screen sharing the resume of Prof. Triana, I would like to read the CV of Professor Triana Hertiani with the education background, finishing the doctor program from Heinrich Heine University, Germany, and her master from Ilmu Farmasi, Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. Pharmacist from Faculty of Pharmacy, Universitas Gadjah Mada as well, and undergraduate pharmacy, Faculty of Pharmacy, UGM. With the area of expertise, medical and health sciences, phytochemistry, pharmaceutical biology. With the current position, Prof. Triana is a lecturer at the Pharmaceutical Biology Department, Faculty of Pharmacy, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. And in recent times, he serves also as a researcher at the Research Collaboration Center, Biofilm Indonesia. With the research interest covering 3 points: microbiology, natural product chemistry, and phytopharmaceutics, she has some patents such as metode preparasi daging buah naga merah sebagai pelindung kulit dari paparan ultraviolet. And her award was Best Oral Presenter ISISM 2014, Permit 2014, and also Best Oral Presenter PIT IAI 2016. We work address Pharmaceutical Biology Department, Faculty of Pharmacy, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. For Professor Triana Hertiani, time is yours with the theme Strengthening Global Health Resilience.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Moderator. Please allow me to share the PowerPoint presentation. Is my voice clear, everyone? Clear, bro. I try to adjust first. So good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Sri Hindiastuti, our moderator, for a very nice introduction. And first and foremost, I would like to extend my gratitude to the committee, especially to Bapak Ilham Setio Budi as the rector of ITEKES Cendekia Utama Kudus, and all the committee for the invitation. It is really an honor for me to share and discuss with you all, and with also our honorable speakers, to talk about something which is really important, especially following the pandemic COVID-19. Yes, today we will discuss about how to strengthening global health resilience. And from the pharmacy perspectives, please allow me to focusing on the national self-reliance on nature-based pharmaceutical raw materials. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will. The rectors of ITEKES has already mentioned that following the pandemic COVID-19, the world has risen the awareness about the urgency and the importance to establish global health resilience. And for that purpose, I would like also to highlight, go back a little bit about what is actually the foundation of the global health resilience. It's about health system resilience, which was introduced by OECD in 2019. It stated that the global health resilience, it's about health system resilience, is the ability of health system not only to prepare for shocks, but also to minimize the negative consequences of such disruption, recover as quickly as possible, and to adapt by learning lessons from the experience to become better performing and also more prepared. And when we say about a shock is a sudden and extreme change which impacts on health system, and is thus different from the predictable and enduring health system stresses such as population aging. So further, WHO in its policy brief in 2020 has also highlighted that the health system resilience is the ability to prepare, for manage, and to absorb, to adapt, and to transform. And what also important is how to learn from the shocks. And the shock itself has 4 stages. The first one is preparedness. So how we prepare before the shocks is happening. So it's before the pandemic is happening, of course. And then when the emergency or the shock coming or the shock onset, how to alert everyone and how that shock impact manage efficiently, and then afterward how to recover from that shocks and learning from that experience. As also mentioned by Mr. Rector, it's after following the pandemic COVID-19, Alhamdulillah, we are also already, inshallah, passed through that what so-called also shocks. And Indonesia as G20 presidency in 2022 has also underlined on that issue by giving a tagline, recover together, recover stronger, as the Mr. Rector has already mentioned. So, ladies and gentlemen, actually this tagline, it has a multidisciplinary approach to obtain and in order to build a strong health system resilience. And I would like to underline what have been discussed in the T20 Indonesia 2022 about the to support the Indonesia G20 presidency is from Dr. Raymond Chandrawinata, which is the representative from DEXA Medical Group, one of the leading pharmaceutical industry in Indonesia. He underlined about the green pharmacy from an ecological perspective as one alternative to be part of the national health resilience. And what has been discussed is that from the national health resilience in the country like Indonesia, which has limited production of medicinal raw materials, as we already know that in Indonesia, we have to import it at least 90% of our medicinal raw materials. And also almost the same with the medical devices, almost 85%. And in that kind of situation, we rely most of our medicinal product from import. And in the case of emergency like the COVID-19, that can cause a supply shock. And in that situation, the pharmaceutical industry, which based on the chemical medicine industry, will also easily be threatened with stopping. So that happened because every country competes each other how to get the best of medicinal supply. Why? Because they are increased in significant amount the demand on the medicinal raw materials, and at the same time, the countries with also the biggest producent of these medicinal raw materials like China and India has to face the lockdown. So there are also decreased in significant numbers the production of the medicinal raw materials. So learning from the shock or the experience of COVID-19 pandemic case, if we only rely on the chemical-based drugs, which is like I've mentioned before, 90% 90% of our needs are imported. So it's from the pandemic situation, one alternative which can also be a rescue and stand as a winner issue at the time is the green pharmacy with its herbal medicine. So Dr. Raymond also mentioned that it's not only during the pandemic, but actually further green pharmacy, especially with phytopharmaca, which will be serve as a great potential to support the health system resilience. Why? Because phytopharmaca is manufactured equated with a modern medicine because it's standardized, and it's also supported by a strong research and development. So learning back on the cases of natural product-based pharmaceutical role in Indonesia during pandemic-19, there was a huge increase in the demand for natural product-based pharmaceuticals during the pandemics, and it's from the survey. It's also there are increase of so many people believe more in the natural product base because it's also it's easily available. And one of the example, I think everyone's well aware about what has been introduced by the Ministry of Forestry about the potential of eucalyptus essential oils. And also because it's really similar, it's not the same, but it's similar with kayu putih. There are huge variation, innovation regarding this essential oil at the time. It has a good impact in some ways, but actually further, it also have a potential negative implication. Why? Because then some people will less protecting themselves because they believe that, okay, I have been protected with this product, so I will not use the mask properly, and I will not keep the distance with others. So at the time, it's also needs a special treatment. It's not only that we introduce a product, but we also have to educate the community. At that time, there are raised, I think the FDA in Indonesia, FDA or Food and Drug Administrative Agency, say that during the pandemic, it's from January to July 2022, there are at least 170 something requests registered new product regarding the how to prevent from the virus, and there are also some other products with relate to health supplement. But it's sadly, ladies and gentlemen, it's not all actually come from Indonesia raw materials. Some herbal medicine at that time, it's imported. And it's really sadly, because why? We actually have so many potential in our herbal medicine products, but at that time, people believe more to those come from the import. Why? I think it's also somehow relate to how we prepare for our herbal medicine product to be able to use in this shock or emergency situation. But fortunately, our FDA and then also give a strong endorsement to the traditional medicine and health supplement, and also continuously educate the community about which one, what should you trust, and which news or which facts and which one is hoax, etc. And it's give us the perspective about the essential role of the government, but not only the government, but also the media as a source of legitimate information. Ladies and gentlemen, as we also, I think, already well aware that Indonesia is such a big country, it has a huge richness of biodiversity, as you can see here, when the red colors represent the huge biodiversity, and the Indonesia cover almost all the richness in the biodiversity. It's not only from terrestrial plants, animals, and minerals, but also from maritime environment, or from the sea. And besides, we also rich in culture, in traditional medicine. So traditional medicine, it's mostly come from herbs and minerals, and it has been used for centuries. And so therefore, it has been proven to be effective and also relatively safe. So in this case, it also supported what mentioned by Dr. Raymond in the T20 discussion. There are a huge potential of nature-based pharmaceutical raw materials to support the national health sovereignty, and at the end also support a global health resilience. But how to develop from the empirical knowledge to somehow scientific, like mentioned by Dr. Raymond. So it's a phytopharmaca. So actually the development of natural product medicine can base on the empirical use by the local knowledge. So from the indigenous Indonesian people, but some also adapted. I think every one of you have heard about Echinacea, for example. Echinacea is not originated from Indonesia, but it's widely used as part of immunomodulatory products. And ginkgo biloba, for example, it's also not originated from Indonesia. Ginseng, for example, it's from Korea, it's not from Indonesia, but it's also widely used by empirical usage. There are also research which rely on random screening, for example, to screen the bioactivity from plants in Borneo Islands or in remote area in Maluku, etc. And there are at least 3 ways how to develop those natural products. The first one is, we simply prove by research, giving a proof of that traditional uses from the scientific perspective. So it's also important, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because as as I mentioned before, and you saw that in my last slide, Indonesia is such a big country with islands, many islands, and there are some regions which are really remote, rural area, which far away from health facilities, and it will be difficult to rely on them only on a conventional medicine or only from the health facilities which somehow far away. So in this case, it's important how the community in the rural area, especially in the remote area, have a self-reliance on the health needs in the case of emergency, for example. So in this case, it's also important to prove that what has been used empirically, which one is actually proved scientifically, and which one is actually maybe only a placebo or even dangerous. And the second part is more in industrial part, is herbal products, like the one mentioned by Dr. Raymond in T20. So in this case, We can also distribute it more more easily, not only in certain part of region, but also all over Indonesia and even abroad. And the third one, it's the we do research in order to find a new chemical entities which can be developed further to be a conventional medicine. I think the good examples, and maybe you also already known about artemisinin, which is used for anti-malaria, for example. It was first from the herbal medicine, but then introduced as a conventional medicine. Paclitaxel, for example, but it needs so much of resource, and it's not only stopping in the new chemical entities, you also have to build a supply chain in the raw materials, and I think it will need a huge commitment to produce up to qualified conventional medicine. So in this case, I would like to underline on those two ways instead. So in Indonesia, we have at this time 3 categories of herbal medicine products. So from the indigenous knowledge, from the traditional form, for example, as a tea or as the fresh applied directly to your skin, for example, from the original herbs. You can use it as a fresh jamu. Jamu is already accepted as a traditional medicine in all over Indonesia, even though actually many regions have its own name of their traditional medicine. But worldwide, jamu is already introduced as Indonesian traditional medicine. And in this case, it doesn't need registration. So fresh jamu and can be used like the first way I mentioned before is we can use it directly by local people in the community based on the herbs they planted in the garden or the home yard. And the second category will be an industrial. So it has to be registered in our FDA, Indonesian FDA. So its first is jamu. The second one is OHT atau obat herbal terstandar or standardized herbal medicine. And the third one is the phytopharmaca. What is the difference between those 3? So the difference is the jamu, it has to be derived from an indigenous knowledge. So it has to be proven that it has been used by, from centuries by our ancient. So it has to be also in the traditional form from the original herbs. But from jamu, because it comes from indigenous knowledge, it has been proven for centuries. In this case, it considered to be safe and effective. So in this case, it doesn't need, it's not required more like the OHT, which needs a preclinical study for the safety and also the efficacy. It also has to be standardized, and it should be in the extract form, so not in original herbs. It's not allowed in the original herbs. But in the phytopharmaca, like mentioned by Dr. Raymond in the previous slide, phytopharmaca, it has to succeed the clinical trials, and it also has to be manufactured with the standard equated with the modern or conventional medicine. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we already well aware that there are a huge difference of philosophy how to use a traditional medicine in comparison to the conventional medicine. So the traditional medicine more from the holistic approach, but the conventional medicine, it will be more specific target or symptoms. The traditional medicine, it consists of multi-components, And conventional medicine is more like a single or only several components. Traditional medicine believed to have a slower effect, and conventional medicine usually give a more or faster effect. And in traditional medicine, it's lack of sufficient scientific proof, but actually it has also been used for centuries and safe and efficacy, it's good. But in conventional medicine, it has to be proven scientifically. It has to be supported by evidence scientifically. There are almost no guidelines, especially in Indonesia, about the use of traditional medicine, the formal guideline. But in conventional medicine, it's not only available, but it's a must. But traditional medicine have so-called side effect eliminating substances, which is not consist in conventional medicine. Traditional medicine usually impractical in preparation and usage, but the conventional medicine usually more practical, it's more standardized, but it's not usually traditional medicine offers a wider application, and conventional medicine usually only covers certain ailments. So how the chemicals in the herbal medicine contribute to the holistic of the traditional medicine? So because the traditional medicine or herbal medicine consists of multi-components, it's not only one component like paracetamol, ibuprofen. No, it has not only one or two or three, not only 10 or 20, but it's even hundreds. But some of them act as the active compound, but others can support the active compound and give a synergistic effect. So I think you also well aware about what is synergistic effect means. It means that 1 + 1 is not 2, but it can be 3, or it can also be 4 and even 12. So in this case, we can use the same, we can use less amount of herbs with the same potential than if the active compound is used only a single component. There are also some supporting effect. What's mean by supporting effect? For example, if for the analgesic, for example, or for infection, for example, there are some component which works on as an antibacterial, some components support as the antipyretics, and it's also some also support the recovery, how the cells will regenerate, or antioxidative effect, etc. That also some part of the components support the effect, and some also as a bioavailability modifier, because most of the active component has bad biodiversity, and in this case, bioavailability modifier can increase the bioavailability or the presence of the active component in the target action. And the fourth one, I think it's also very important, is what's so-called side effect eliminating substances, or compounds which eliminate the negative effect from the active compound.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Professor Triana.
Yeah.
I'm sorry previously because I didn't share the time allocation.
Okay.
And your time allocation maybe 5 minutes later.
Okay.
Baik. Thank you.
Makasih, Bu. Yeah, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will continue that one of the good examples is the jamu kunir asem. So it consists of curcuma, which has a bad bioavailability, but since by empirical uses, it's used together with tamarind, which acidic, and curcumin known to be more stable and has a better bioavailability in presence of acidic. So it's help the curcumin to reach the target more efficiently. And also one of the essential oil consists in the curcuma longa, is believed to increase the bioactivity, bioavailability of this active component. I think it's to give the synergism effect. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many examples, but maybe we can discuss later if you are interested further in the discussion part. But there are also some concern regarding herbal medicine usage. The first one is Lassa. It's almost like a pharmaceutical products. It's look alike and sounds alike. There are some herbs which are similar to each other, and it can be also misused by local people. And there are also some adulteration from the synthetic drugs, and also from low quality herbs, and also the low quality production or improper use. I mean, there are also some improper use of herbal medicine, as maybe you also well aware of some kratom, for example, in Borneo. And also in problem with interaction with conventional medicine, which also has to be notice. And the last one is about sustainable production. Okay, I will skip that part. Maybe this one is also interesting about insulin leaves. If you are also well aware, there are at least two types of insulin leaf or down insulin in Indonesia, which is actually there are two totally different herbs, which may sometimes mistaken by the local people, even though they consist of different chemical component. Okay, so I will continue, and then, so in this case, a proper cultivation, a proper supply of herbal raw materials, it needs a collaboration from the industry, the one that produce the herbal medicine product industrially, and also the farmer. It has to be close to each other collaboration, and also from the academician, of course, because the academician will research how to produce or which one to produce the potential herbal medicine to be developed as the phytopharmaca. And I would also like to underline, because I mentioned before, one of the problem is the sustainability production in herbal medicine. It's not easy to produce herbal medicine industrially, because it's need not only 1 or 2 kilos, it needs tons. So therefore, we have also to concern about our environment, how to produce that herbal medicine by approach of green chemistry. So in this case, we have to reduce and eliminate the hazardous substances. So in this case, we have to concern about the life cycle of the chemical products from the herbal medicine. So in this case, we know or we recognize about green extraction, how to extract or produce extract with the more environmentally friendly by reuse, and renewable natural products. So because we have to concern about the raw materials, the production process, and also the byproducts and waste management, also packaging. So this one is one good example that we cannot always rely on plant or cultivation in the horizontal cultivation site, but we also have to consider about other innovative or smart farming, because sooner or later the herbal medicine will compete with the needs of food. if we only rely on horizontal or conventional method of farming. And then we also have to use a bio-based solvents, so it's not from petroleum-based solvent. And we also have to also extend not only using conventional extraction techniques, but we also have to use innovative extraction techniques to be able to produce the herbal medicine in more efficient and effective ways. So in this case, I will recommend that to increase the awareness of the importance of integrated pentahelix collaboration strategy to support for a sustainable herbal medicine production from the government, academician like us all, and also from business part, from industrial, of course, and also from community and the media. And we learn from the COVID pandemic, if there are disintegration of these 5 aspects, so there are some negative consequences from the pandemics which actually not come from the virus itself, but from others like from hoax or for panics, etc. So last but not least, I would like to give a take-home message for us all, so that the health system resilience is actually the ability to prepare for, to manage, how to absorb, how to adapt, and how to transform and learn from the shocks, and that a qualified herbal medicine production may serve as a suitable alternative in national health system resilience if it's managed properly. And a sustainable qualified herbal medicine production requires a multidisciplinary approach and an integrated pentahelix collaboration. And taking from a quote from Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning, staying together is a process, and working together is a success. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's collaborate. Thank you, Ms. Sri Hindiastuti. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Professor Triana, for the presentation. From Professor Triana's presentation, we can highlight that it is important to support global health resilience by developing green pharmacy. And it is also supported in our campus, Professor. We have a greenhouse behind our campus, and we also planted some herbal raw materials here. And I think this is also a part of our effort to support global health resilience. Thank you. And for our second session will be delivered by Janet Saman, but we have to make sure that Janet Saman already with us. Hello, Janet Saman, are you with us?
Yes. Hello, I am. Thank you.
Hello, you're from USA, right? So it's different time zone. I was a little bit worried because it's in America, it's 4 AM if I'm not mistaken. Jam 4 pagi di Amerika. Give big applause to Miss Janet Saman. Thank you for joining us this morning. And Miss Janet Saman will give a presentation about strengthening global health resilience through community-based global health virtual learning from global perspectives. I will read a short resume of Janet Saman. CV. Okay. Janet Saman, or we call as Jenny, because previously I contacted with Jenny through email, Jenny, and now we face together but through Zoom, and it's a big chance for me to learn from you. And Jenny is more than 30 years, has held numerous international education positions in higher education. For the past decade, she served as the Senior Director of Visiting Student Programs at the Associations of American Medical College. In that capacity, she found a global network of medical schools, teaching hospitals and NGOs today in over 40 nations. She also facilitates international mobility for medical and public health students across a wide spectrum of electives. She earned a PhD in higher education administration from University of Hawaii at Manoa, with a focus on international education, and an MA in international studies from Ohio University. And I was in Ohio too, Jenny, so I think we were in the same university, although I was only for 2 months there. And her passion and commitment to developing global mindsets is a driving force in personal and professional endeavor. For the presentation, please, time is yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, can you see my screen okay and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, first of all, I need to say to all of you, selamat pagi, because I believe it is morning for you as well there in Indonesia. And it is truly my great pleasure and honor to have been invited and to be with you virtually today. As you have already heard, my name is Dr. Jeanette Saman. I go by Jenny. And today's agenda for this presentation is I'd like to spend some time giving some definitions of global health that we use here in the program that I'm involved with. I'd also share 3 different tools for sustainable global health community engagement. These are rubrics and theories that I think could be utilized well in many different contexts. I'll then talk very briefly about Child Family Health International, the organization with which I am currently involved. And I will talk about how we've used a number of these different rubrics and frameworks for our in-person as well as virtual programs. So first of all, just to spend a moment on an accepted international definition of global health, so that we are talking about a field that is focused on health equity. And we are talking really about what is it, what are the actions that we can do together, as the previous speaker just talked about the importance of collaboration, and that it is a field that is multidisciplinary, focusing on population-based prevention as well as individual clinical care. So this interdisciplinary approach pulls in many different areas of expertise. Another and more recent definition for public or global health, is this model that is called the 5P model. I've given you the citation on the slides, and I am sure that your conference presenters can make this deck available to you after the conference is over. But here what you see in this model of global health is that the very center is the word parity. So again, a focus on health equity for all. And you have this north-south axis, which is talking about priorities. Priorities are set sometimes by national agendas, by regions, and also by communities. In addition, you have, let me just move this. In addition to these, you have on the east-west axis, people and planet. And all of these are not intended to be either or, but to be various components contributing to models of global health education. The domains of global health competency that are often included in education and training programs at all levels are outlined here, and they again have been derived by international collaboration and published in the journal that is called Annals of Global Health. The other part of my title is resilience, and certainly we have heard in the last speaker's presentation, and I'm sure for the rest of your day, the concept of resilience has been highlighted for us with the COVID global pandemic that we all lived through and experienced. And when we talk about resilience, we are thinking of such concepts as growth and resurgence and the ability to overcome many obstacles, this concept of endurance. And so what I will talk about is how global health programs evolved and became resilient in the face of COVID, but also how that helped and with the community growth as well. So let's move on to a framework that is likely familiar to many of you, given that you are public health practitioners. And this is the concept of evidence-based public health. Again, what we have here are 7 components of it, beginning always with community assessment, qualifying what the issue is, developing a statement of the issue, figuring out what you're going to be researching, developing priorities and an action plan, and continually evaluating and assessing. So this isn't necessarily global health, but it is a model that is used as a public health approach when deciding that you're going to go into a community and work on a global health project. I'd like to shift a bit and talk now about a concept called fair trade. Likely in Indonesia, you have heard of this, and it is often associated with the concept of fair trade in business, in the production of coffee, of the pipeline for fruits and vegetables to go from growth to the store, in terms of clothing. And the question is really, is it an ethical and fair living wage that is being paid to the growers, the sowers, and those at the beginning of the supply chain? The emphasis on fair trade is really a world-changing way of doing business, and it has now made its way into the concept of higher education. So again, you might be very familiar with fair trade certified products, but let's now talk about what that looks like in terms of fair trade learning in education. This image here is depicting that students or volunteers, and you could put trainees, they could be nurse practitioners or healthcare professionals in training, combined with doing work in the host community. You see on this scale, we are striving for them to be in balance. Not that one is receiving a greater access than another. Now, the question really is, why do we need fair trade learning? Well, what is the issue that is at hand here? Well, we know that between partnerships of many kinds, and they could be a partnership within Indonesia, they could be a partnership that is with a high income and a low or middle income country. But regardless of where that partnership, there are often privilege differentials. There are different statuses and power dynamics. Sometimes there's a legacy of colonialism that is part and very present, though not often acknowledged in a partnership. And so all of these, along with unconscious bias, are reasons that we need to be very, very mindful and purposeful in designing global health, community-based learning programs. So what are the components of fair trade learning partnerships? I will share the actual rubric with you in a few minutes, but you can see that it is a very, it's a long list here of various components that make up fair trade, beginning with having a common purpose, ensuring the rights and protection of the vulnerable, how you communicate, how it is that you evaluate continually, and what the partnership looks like over time. Is it sustainable? So this is how the rubric actually looks. And again, I've given you the citation so that you would be able to find it and delve deeper than I'm able to go today. What I have done here is I have shown you that these on the left side here in the blue are the indicators, so a common purpose. And at the top, I have indicated that this is a developmental model. So you see there is an entry concept, an intermediate stage, an advanced, and we're all working toward an ideal. So taking, for example, common purpose, If you are at the ideal stage in this rubric, all parties would have agreed upon a long-term, mutually beneficial goals and aspirations. And then moving to the entry level, there is an existing connection, but that everybody doesn't view the purpose and the goals of engagement in the same way. So by taking time and using this kind of a rubric, a community can be benefiting greatly by having learners of any kind in it, as well as the learners and the teachers and mentors and preceptors continuing to learn as well as to mentor. So some examples then, how does this actually work? Again, the organization I'm affiliated with at present is Child Family Health International. And so we use these principles to determine that the local leaders are the experts in the community. And again, connecting back to your previous speaker, she was talking greatly about the importance of herbal medicine and about knowing that there is a long history of certain plants and herbs being very efficacious. So that is a great example of local leadership being the knowledgeable ones. Also, the sites in which we provide learning have been long-standing relationships. We use the Fair Trade Partnership and cross-cultural tools to ensure that the students and the preceptors are approaching all learning with a great deal of humility. Now, another model that I'd like to review here is called the Broacher Declaration. And this declaration has a set of values that are very much in keeping with the fair trade learning. The goals of adopting this declaration and being a signatory to it are really to reduce disparities in health around the world. And that is our overall goal, those of us who are involved in global health at all levels. We are trying to build respect and solidarity, social justice, and again, always sustainable and asset-based, mutually beneficial goals. So the principles are 6, and again, I'm giving you the citation that is at the bottom of this slide so that you can go to the website and read more carefully about this. But the concept here again is to ensure that what is at the local level is what is the most important, and being the local host community being empowered to help define the programs and what is acceptable and not acceptable in a particular location, to hold all parties accountable. So again, when we are thinking about this experiential learning, what we are aiming for here is this intersectionality. So you might have a home institution that is sending students or learners. You will have a local community that is hosting, and you will have student needs and capacities, and where all 3 of those overlap, that's the area that we are aiming for, to have a truly mutually beneficial and respectful experiential program. I'm also providing you a number of different resources for those of you who are interested in digging a little deeper into developing competencies and developing competencies for these kinds of programs, global health, cultural humility, and much more. Now, a little bit about the organization itself of CFHI. We are a nonprofit, non-governmental organization that has been developing and delivering global health education programs for 30 years. We have serviced over 12,000 students, and we are in 11 different countries with a very, very vibrant and essential global partnership. We operate with different NGOs in countries, hospitals, and ministries of health. We are in a special status with the United Nations, and we help to promote the UN development goals. We also not only develop and deliver educational programs, but we do much research on global health and the importance of community preservation and resilience, especially in these difficult times. So again, to summarize, our approach is an asset-based one where we hold up the local practitioners and apply fair trade learning. before any engagement for our students, whether it is a virtual learning program or a place-based where students are traveling to another country, the emphasis is on these various topics here. A strong commitment to ethics, delivering tools for students to remain humble and respectful and courteous in their learning, for them to be flexible and adaptable and really willing to learn in an unfamiliar environment. To this end, we have developed something called the Pillars modules, and they are pillars of global health. At present, we have 7 modules. They are, all the titles of them are found here, and they are completely online. They are virtual, and a student can sign up directly, pay online, and directly access these 7 modules, or an institution can have a conversation with me to learn how you might have access to these modules and incorporate them into your health professions, nursing program for undergraduates or postgraduates. So again, these are the 7 modules that currently exist, and we're adding an 8th one called Health Systems. Again, these are fully online. They're very interactive. They are in English. And upon completion, successful completion of them, a student will receive a certificate of completion. So moving on just quickly to our educational options, we have programs that are in Africa, Asia, and South America. In Asia, currently, we are in India and the Philippines. And these are programs where students go as a small group of students to various a country and engage in maternal and child health or some other focus. Each country and each site has determined its own area of emphasis. When the pandemic started, it was impossible for us to continue place-based programs. And so we had to shift, as all of you had to some kind of online learning. What we did in utilizing our fair trade practices and principles was we reached out to all of our countries and we asked them how prepared did they feel they are to deliver an internship or a practicum or a global health elective virtually. And for those institutions and sites that felt that they could continue to do it via Zoom, we were able to continue for 3 years to develop and deliver high quality programs now to international students around the world because this was all being done by Zoom. This allowed us also to have a comparative perspective, which when a person is going to one particular country is much harder to achieve than when you have 10 or 15 countries represented by students and faculty all together. Our virtual global health elective is still ongoing because it was very well received. Again, it is completely online. About half of the time, the students are learning from professors and from practitioners in the different countries. The other half of the time, they are learning by doing projects and reading and doing homework assignments. Our next cohort begins July 3rd, and I'm pleased to say that if any of you have students that are interested, we have full scholarships available for students from low and middle income countries. And we do use the Zoom platform for the delivery of that. So I hope that I have helped you to understand ways in which, despite the pandemic and despite many challenges that our communities face in terms of achieving health for all, that there are organizations that are working very collaboratively with communities to ensure that the community is benefiting as much as the trainees or the students who are visiting the various sites so that the relationships can be long-lasting. And I would like to conclude by saying terima kasih banyak and to answer any questions that you may have if the organizers believe we have time.
Okay, give a big applause to Jenny. Thank you very much, Jenny. Sama-sama. So if you say terima kasih banyak, we will answer with sama-sama. Yes, from Jenny's presentation, we can highlight that it is important for us to involve many sectors, not only in education sectors, but also community involvement to support global health resilience. Thank you, Jenny. And because we are in panel, so the discussion question will be later. And we would like to welcome for the third speakers. Our third speakers would be Professor Sarifa Izzat Wan Puteh from Public Health Department of Kebangsaan Malaysia University with the theme Strengthening Global Health Resilience from Public Health Perspectives. And I will read the resume for Professor Sarifa. Professor Sarifah is a lecturer from Malaysia Public Health from Malaysia Kebangsaan University, and her current position is a medical lecturer, Department of Community Health and Faculty of Medicine UKM, Universitas Kebangsaan Malaysia. Technical Advisory Committee for Health Technologies Economic Evaluation, Associate Principal Fellow of the Tun Fatimah Hasim Women Leadership Center, Chairman of Malaysia Society for Harm Reduction, with her area of expertise covering health economic, hospital and health management, and public health. With her work address, Department of Community Health, Faculty of Medicine, UKM Medical Center. For Professor Sarifa Izzat Wan Puteh, your allocation time is 20 to 30 minutes, Professor, and time is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Terima kasih kepada Madam Panitia dan juga rakan-rakan daripada Universiti Teknologi Kesihatan Kudus I was invited for the talk. Thank you very much kepada semua rakan-rakan dan juga Dr. Ervi yang banyak berkomunikasi dengan saya. Saya kalau masa jemputan itu masanya 40 minit tapi kalau sekarang ni sudah diturunkan 30 minit jadi saya banyak yang cut short saja Saya hendak share slide. Izinkan saya share slide semula. Boleh nampak Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much. So my perspective is on public health and also what we had in Malaysia during the COVID outbreak, basically. And so I think we've come to this presentation again and again. What is public health resilient? What is healthcare resilient? What is the healthcare system resilient? Has been mentioned by Prof. Triana and also Madam Jenny just now. So it's basically the capacity of a health system to foresee, absorb, adapt, and these are usually to shocks, and these shocks can be in many forms. It can be in the form of infectious disease, what we had in COVID. It can be to other forms as well, war, flood, and so on. So how are the health systems going to be able to sustain, resume, transform, and also reduce its vulnerability? So in a way, most of these are affected will be the healthcare workforce, and this will include the pharmacies. You are in family health, pediatrician, and so forth and so forth. You're a frontliner, you're working in primary care, specialist clinician, and so on. And this goes on and on. So most of the reforms or resilience that we look at would be coming from either WHO or OECD countries. And these are some of the excerpts, some of the proposal or concept that has been mentioned by a few countries, looking at how national leadership and policy actually adopt and adapt during some health intervention or health shocks that occurs. So they have a few domains and looking at a few domains and how are you able to transform. And this can go on integrated or disintegrated manner. So when you talk about resilience, how the health system are able to cope in the country, as well, looking at a few domains as well, you can look at 4, you can look at in here, some of the WHO health service resilient teams from the WHO headquarters. They mention as awareness, mobilization, self-regulation, integration, diversity, transformation, and so forth. So in a way, what can be taken away is that how people define health resilient would actually differ in certain situation and differ by certain definition. If you look at OECD, there might be some variations. If you look at WHO and so forth, there could be some variations. But basically, it's basically the same thing. How do you respond to shock, and how do you actually adapt and improve your vulnerability areas? So and when you talk about response, there have been models that look at how you counter it would be in 4 phases. You prepare, you absorb, you recover, and you adapt. So this is from some of the excerpts. As again, you can actually look at all these excerpts, and you can look at the references for further explanation. And these are areas which many countries have failed, and many areas which many countries are still struggling even during this pandemic preparedness as well. So if you look at resilience, some of the roles in systems, including the time, the management part, and what are the stages. And these are again after disruption, during disruption, and before disruption. So they define it by the certain phases as well. Again, this is from OECD. And if you look at WHO building block, so there's 6 WHO building block looking at leadership and governance, information, health workforce, financing, medical products, service delivery. So it depends on where you are and how you actually improve that system. For public health personally, for me personally, we look at the whole policies. So even though we are in the teaching area, we basically work together with the Ministry of Health, we work together with the country on how to improve all these areas. It's not easy, but again, some of our contribution actually adds on to more of the input that we are able to help the country. So in some of the areas, still talking about the domains, if you look at some of the areas, building blocks, these are leadership and governance. So these would be some of the illustrated examples, improving the public health laws, the policies, the plan, communicating it, increasing the awareness. How do you work with multi-sectoral actions? How do you improve your policies, making it more clear and things like that? So it goes with leaderships, it goes with financing, it goes with the workforce area. You improve how many people are on board, how many people are you able to sustain. Remember, during the COVID pandemic, there's a lot of death and there's a lot of people who actually abandon their work for certain reasons. How do you improve information system? Because in some areas, the patients can't actually come to the hospital or to the health center. Some of these you have to actually put systems or online things for the people to actually communicate. How do you increase or sustain your medical supplies? This has been mentioned by Prof. Chana. Sometimes you have to go back to your own natural resources for the countries. Each countries may differ. How do you actually use your own countries to actually improve your listing or your essential drugs and services? How do you improve your service deliveries and so forth? So in here, which looks at the lesson from 28 countries, and this was published quite recent, about 2 years ago. So some of the community engagement that has been mentioned, where you look at the health system resilient framework, things like the governance and financing, health workforce, medical products and technologies, how the public health functions, how the service is being delivered, and how they are governed and how they are financed. So in the end, you have to engage the community. In the end, it works together with developing the health system resilience in combating some shocks. And this differs, the shock differs, as I mentioned before. So in some of the WHO setting, they look at some of the strategies to improve this, and that the list goes on. From 1 up to 20, I am not going to go through one by one. I'm just going to go 1 or 2 examples. So examples in strategy 1, these are examples steering the response through effective political leadership. Strategy 2 include delivering a clear and timely COVID response strategies, so and so forth. So we have the whole list from 1 up to 20. So again, looking at how this response, how example in disasters, and what we had was exactly a disaster where they actually plan, prepare, absorb, recover, and also adapt. I'm going to show you some example what Malaysia had. What are some of the examples that Malaysia had with issues with COVID, and some of how do we respond to that? So when we talk about resilience in COVID especially, the OECD actually come up with some recovery dashboard. So there's another way that they actually measures. They look at 20 indicators to monitor the quality of the recovery, and they give pointers, things like whether this is strong recovery, is inclusive, whether it was resilient, and so forth. And they even look at gender inequalities, which was highlighted throughout that. So the COVID pandemic actually hit us quite bad, including Malaysia as well. We had a lot of pressures on our healthcare service, which I'm going to explain. Most of them are actually overstretched during the pandemic. And again, the pandemic is not actually far from over. We are still facing issues with the pandemic, including some of the long COVID and so forth. So in a way, it has been mentioned that we need to invest, we need to improve warning system and so forth. We need to improve budget, but the issue is that the budget is shrinking. How do you ensure that money is available for everyone? And again, how to make sure that the community is engaged and in the end, improve your healthcare delivery. So coming back to COVID, Southeast Asia, Malaysia was badly hit as well. I think a lot of countries was actually badly hit. So these are some of the examples coming from overseas countries. Some of the how they extract, and this was available online, and people can actually look at that, what genomes are available in some of your countries, how they actually differ, and how do they actually spread within the countries. Some of the experience was that Malaysia had. We tried to be an early preparedness. There was already surveillance system online, developed some guidelines. Of course, collaboration with the public and private sector was actually highly improved during that time. Most of the cases which we cannot actually put in our public hospital was actually collaborated with the private hospital. So the private hospital actually absorbed some of our patients. Of course, some of the payment come from the government. Remember, we don't have a national financing scheme already. We don't have that. We don't have a national insurance as what Indonesia has recently, which is very good. So some of them include the diagnostic capacity was improved, trying to improve. We did try our best to improve that, working together with the private healthcare as well. We improved in the critical care bed capacities. Some of the hospitals was actually devoted to COVID. This was the expense of some of the patients as well. There was some lament from the population. Issues of beds was not enough. That is throughout the whole Malaysia. So these are how we try to improve during that system, during the pandemic. And there was a robust contact tracing, active case detection, mass testing was done repeatedly, and also coordinating at even the ground level, which was the primary care level up to the highest level, the tertiary level hospitals, the specialist hospital, and so forth. So most of the cases was actually hospitalized. And this was earlier on, whether they were either symptomatic or none. We basically wanted to treat them. They were put in the quarantine centers and so forth. And the patients who are under investigation, close contact, people with SARS was also admitted sometimes to rule out the potential of COVID. And that was actually done earlier on in the first and second wave of Malaysia. So learning via online meetings and things like that, learning from other countries and so forth. So these were some of the ways that Malaysia actually tried to improve our resilience during the COVID as well. Our labour participation was very low at that point in time. A lot of patients actually lose their job. A lot of suicide and parasuicidal areas came about. The government had to pump an additional stimuli. There was some moratorium. People don't have to pay their loans at that point in time to the bank for a certain amount of time until the pandemic sort of move on. And then, of course, they have to continue with their loans and so forth. So these are some of the ways the Malaysia did with the finance and all. And of course, our GDP dropped. It was still negative. This was one of the worst badly hit in Southeast Asia, actually. So, of course, the government had to work with the Ministry of Health, and also other countries' members had to work with the bank, with the statistics department on how to improve our GDPs. And this was not easy. There was a lot of political turmoil as well at that point in time, which we had to deal with. There was a lot of intent coming from the government. They tried to do their best in trying to improve the system for delivery for the patients. A lot of our employment rate was badly hit at that point in time for Malaysia as well. We're trying to improve this. This was last year. There was a dip in 2019. And also our private sector wages was actually quite low at that point in time as well. So our healthcare delivery, there was interrupted medical treatment and also delays in care. A lot of patients actually cannot go to the hospital. A lot of appointments, a lot of vaccination programs was actually halted. Some people could not go just for circumcision and so forth. Some of the delays was for non-emergency procedures. Elective surgeries was cancelled. So we had a lot of backlog that the government had to settle after that. Patients' healthcare utilization was also reduced. A lot of patients was actually, they had a lot of problems during the pandemic. Most of the healthcare system basically could not cater for the non-COVID cases. So there was an issue after that. Our health ministry at that point in time, some of the backlogs, these are by numbers. So you can see that there's a lot of backlog cases that was not really settled during the COVID. And just post-recovery, we have just started, and now we are finishing on basically gotong royong some of the cases and trying to improve and putting which patient should go there and things like that. Some of the sectors which do not actually look into patient care have to be improved so that they can actually cater for these patients as well. So a lot of issues with anxiety and mental health issues. Patient was depressed. A lot of patients had anxiety. A lot of them had severe depressive symptoms. It was very bad at that point in time. Our suicidal cases was also very high. So we had a lot of anxiety, stress, and also these are not only among adults, where we had also adolescents and teenagers having depression as well, because they are locked in their houses as well. They cannot go out. Very interestingly, if you look at how people measure resilience, and I'm going through the end of my slides, example for OECDs which developed in 2020, 2022, they look at how resilient, and they look at COVID resilience, specifically COVID resilient index. And this was done together with Bloomberg, and they tracked about 53 big economies, where these economies are actually linked to about 200 billion before the pandemic. And we actually, in certain times during the pandemic, we actually ranked last. And this was how bad at that point in time that we actually ranked. You can have a look at this reference as well, where specifically this was when the Delta virus, which was the second wave, actually hit us in Malaysia as well. It was badly affecting our economy, where we did not have a lot of movements as well in the country. So what they looked at was actually three major parts, how they look at the reopening progress of the country, including airports, ports, and so on, how people actually come in and all. And when they give it in blue, some coloring in blue or worse with orange, they look at also how we COVID status in the population, whether they were vaccinated, how many percent was actually COVID infected, and so forth. And they also looked at the quality of life of the population. So they look at the indexes of the quality of life, looking at community mobility, the GDP forecast, how universal healthcare coverage was actually sustained in the health system, and they look at human development index. And this human development index itself actually consists of the life expectancy, how access to education was access for the population, male and female, and also the income per capita. So looking at that, at one point in time, we were the last in 53 countries. So we are going from pandemic, now we are transitioning into endemic. We're trying to improve our resilience. So we are going into the endemic stage. You know about the evolution of some of the virus, again with Malaysia as well. We are looking at some of the mutation, but it's decreasing. We are looking at some of the new variants as well, but so far the pathogenicity and also the virulence may not be as bad as the original Wuhan and also Delta. Probably one of the reasons was that our vaccination rate was also quite high. Our passive immunity was also very high. A lot of people was infected and they developed immunity to that. I'm not sure whether there's going to be a new vaccine to suit, but the future for Malaysia, I think we probably will not see the last. We hope that we are able to sustain through this, especially the long COVID. We hope that another pandemic will not be here soon. And also that, you know, with the immunity level, and we hope that we are able to achieve this herd immunity so that in the end, our susceptibility would be lower and we are able to go through and combat any other strains that comes about in Malaysia, going to endemicity stage. And some of the worst things that may happen, we might have new variants, we might have new virus, we don't really know. We hope that it doesn't come soon. And of course, we have to be prepared, and the government is trying to do their best, not only from the Ministry of Health side, but also from other government sectors, Ministry of Education and so forth. So where is Malaysia heading? We have declared so-called starting of the endemicity by the 1st of April this year, where we decrease most of our SOPs, more traveling, mixing, gathering, and so on, and expect some cases during the celebration. We hope that we are able to open up as other countries as well. So in the future, how are we going to measure our health system resilience? There are several approaches. Some uses framework, some use scenario-based testing, some use participatory process, and of course we have to identify recommendations based on other people's experiences from other countries and benchmark this to Malaysians as well. So some of the tools, and these are some of the examples how people actually measure and monitor and also evaluate their health system resilience after a shock. And of course, in some countries, they might be using one or two resilience tools. In Malaysia, we usually stick with WHO. But I'm just giving you an example that, there are many sort of tools that can be used. So in conclusion, health resilience, there's many definitions, there's many domains that you can look at. It can come, the health care shock can actually come in many forms, including what we saw recently, which was in the pandemic of the infectious diseases. And of course, resilience and coming back from the shock is very important in healthcare system. We need competent human resource, assets, and also very important is our budget and how do we actually sustain this. And monitoring and also evaluation will be part of the process. How do we actually monitor further challenges? And this needs to be carefully assessed and of course better prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Izzadwan Puteh, Professor Sarifah. From Professor Sarifah's presentation, we can highlight that Indonesia and Malaysia were not ready for a crisis, actually. And it is our homework that we have to prepare ourselves for any possibilities for future vulnerabilities. Thank you, Professor. And now it's time for discussion. We open for 3 questions, 1 question for each speakers. Is there any question for the participants? I think there is a question in a chat room Zoom. Let me check. So everyone here maybe feel same to give a question. You can ask through chat room in Zoom. And I also welcome those participants who participate virtually to ask through Zoom as well. Anyone asking directly here? Yes. I got a question. This is from our students. Maybe she feels same to give a question directly to the Zoom. So she directly messaged me. Okay, I will read the question. Question for Prof. Triana. This is from Zoom chat. The question is how to determine the green extraction that will be used so that the optimal extract is obtained. So is there still any question or we just answer this question first? I think to effectively use the time, maybe we can welcome Professor Triana to answer the question first. Professor Triana, there's a question from Diah Ainur. Diah Ainur. The question is about how to determine the green extraction. To Professor Triana. Yes,
Thank
please.
you for the question, Bu atau Mbak Diah. It's it's an excellent question because the term about the green extraction is actually relatively new to us because usually we only extract everything usually based on the water or water and ethanol. Actually, in Indonesia, at this time, the regulations support the use of ethanol and or ethyl alcohol or water only. But then it's there are also surat edaran, gitu ya, bahwa we can use other as well, like hexane, ethyl acetate, petroleum ether, etc. But those solvent are not are based on petroleum. So green extraction consists not only how to extract, but how to produce the raw materials. So starting from the raw materials. So I think Ms. Moderator has already mentioned that in ITEKes Cendekia Utama is already also has a greenhouse, and maybe you also have noticed about how to produce in the greenhouse. It will be with the hydroponic, for examples. It will be more efficient because you don't need so much of the what is it? How the area for the cultivation. So it will be reduce the area because you can plant, you can cultivate in what is it? It's not you don't need tidak butuh banyak lahan, tetapi Anda bisa menggunakan apa namanya tempat yang lebih efisien. Nah, so that the first part, how to produce the raw materials, it's a green extraction. And I think in this case, we will need a strong collaboration between the farmer and also from the industrial. Okay, so I think example was from the Sido Muncul and also from Soho. They have a strong collaboration with the farmers, so they can provide a good quality raw materials. And then about the solvent, which solvents has to be used, or what kind of extraction method has to be used. So in this case, we need a special research on that part, because traditionally most herbal medicine produced by using SAP, so it will be water based, right? But with the extraction, we usually use organic solvent like ethyl alcohol, ethyl acetate, etc. So in this case, to choose which one is better, you need a research. Therefore, the role of the academician like us all will be somehow important as a researcher in this field. So we can use actually, interestingly, biosolvent can also consist like honey or madu. Madu can also serve as a good organic extraction solvent. So it's not only environmentally friendly, because it's not dangerous to the environment, and it even has a strong benefit for our health. So madu is one example, and vegetable oils like palm oil, for example, it's also could be a good alternative. And how to extract, it's also the scope of green extraction. You can the traditional way is use maceration, macerasi atau perkolasi gitu ya, direndam begitu. Tapi dengan green extraction, you can add ini di sini ada Bu Endra nih ya, Bu Endra also research on how to intensify or to have a more high concentrated with a more efficient way by adding some ultrasonic energy or microwave. So there are some additional equipment to add to the normal conventional way of extraction that can help the extraction more efficient and therefore more green. So it's, in this case, it's really need a strong collaboration between the industrial and also the researcher, and at the end with the community or as a farmer, for example. Thank you very much. Maybe saya kembalikan waktunya, moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Triana, for the clear explanation. And the next question coming from Rizka Sofiani. The question is, I'm sorry. This is a question to Jenny. And the question is, how as a nursing students we can take part in supporting global health resilience starting from our area? Jenny, maybe?
Yes,
Thank
thank you. Thank you for the question, Rizka. I know that as nursing students, you are playing a very important role in the improvement of health and taking care of your community. In addition to the delivery of healthcare, I would encourage you as a nursing student to take a look at the Fair Trade Learning rubric and to spend some time looking at those various components and asking yourself and maybe even having a conversation with the community in which you are delivering your health care to see if you are able to, in addition to delivering great health care as a nursing student and to learn from the community, you're able to develop a partnership that is mutually beneficial, where you're learning, they're learning, they are a teacher and you are a teacher as well. So I encourage you to take a look at that and see if there are ways in which you can expand the conversation and the collaboration between the community that you are serving and yourselves as nursing students. That would be one way to begin.
Thank you, Jenny, for the explanation. Maybe if there is still a question from Rizka, maybe you can ask later, because the next question is coming from Pelangi. Pelangi in English is rainbow. So the name, maybe she is beautiful like a rainbow actually. Pelangi asked to Professor Sarifa, the question is, in Indonesia, one of the post-pandemic health impacts is mental health. So that mental health can become a social problem. How do you think we should solve this problem in order not to get worse?
Thank you, Adam. And also thank you untuk soalannya Pelangi rainbow. Mental health issues is a big problem, including in Malaysia. I assume that it's also an issue in Indonesia as well. One of the reason it happens in Malaysia as well is because of some of them, not all, are also addicted to either tobacco and also drugs. When we say drugs, there's a lot of things like under drugs, like morphine, cocaine, synthetic drugs and so on. So when the pandemic hit, some of them could not obtain these so-called drugs for certain reason lah. Access tak ada, mahal, COVID tutup, port banyak tutup, enforcement banyak, jadi dia orang tak dapat akses. Jadi itu antara perkara lah yang menyebabkan mereka mendapat mental health issue. Tapi perkara yang lebih besar yang kita nampak mental health issue tu ialah pasal mereka tak dapat, when during the COVID, banyakkan kita tak ada, we cannot actually exchange opinions with others. A lot of us are under the lockdown, and this actually improve reduce our mental capacity, and most of us are exposed to stress, to financial stress as well, and also anxiety as well, and this leads to either dysthymia and also depression. As I mentioned repeatedly just now, we saw the increment in suicides, parasuicide, domestic violence, mostly partners of the males against the females, meaning the husband or partners beat up their wife or things. It can go the other way around, but most of it are inflicted by the more dominant partner or the males. So that happens. Abuse as well among children. And it's not easy, so there's no one answer. It has to be a holistic view. So one of them, whether this is actually a policy in your country, is that taken as a priority? In certain countries, because of there's not enough financial so-called budget, and we are competing with each other, this sector against that sector. So it has to be a priority setting in your country. It has to be a policy agenda. People need to make noise about it. The NGO, the CSO, the population, they need to contribute not only in writing but also telling the government, these are our grouses, these are our problems. Our children are not performing, we are also under a lot of duress. So that becomes an agenda. So then, of course, it has to translate downwards. That means not only the top hospitals are providing mental health so-called management or treatment, it must be translated downwards, so that the treatment or management and also early screening can be done not only at the GPs or the clinics, private clinics and so forth. I think in Indonesia, you have the luxury of insurance, where you have some sort of social health insurance in your country. In Malaysia, we don't have this. It is so-called supposedly under universal health coverage, but as you know, there are also problems with universal health coverage. Some of them do not get covered for certain reasons. Access is far and things like that and so on. So the community needs to work together to improve their mental health in a way, increasing their resilience, early detection and improvement, and also in the end, making sure that the treatment is actually there if they need it. So when we talk about mental health issues, it doesn't have to be a psychiatrist. It can be from a psychologist. It can be from a trained healthcare personnel and things like that. So the diversity of healthcare force that should be able to tackle mental health needs to be improved. At this point in time, also in Malaysia, we are very highly dependent on only the psychiatrists and certain sectors only, and it's not well translated downwards. Again, I think the government is aggressive trying to improve that as well, and making mental health a policy agenda for the healthcare in the future as well. I hope that answers your question, Madam Pelangi.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sarifah, for the answer. Okay, before we go to the next questions, I would like to ask to Dia, Rizka, and also Pelangi, if you still have a question to ask regarding your previous question, please do. No? Okay. Then we go to the next question. The next question coming from Melissa. My name is Melissa, and I'm a student of Cendekia Utama Kudus, majoring in Diploma Pharmacy. The question is for Professor Triana. The question is about what strategies can be used to improve the ability of research and development of researchers in identifying and utilizing natural pharmaceutical raw material in the country. To Professor Triana, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Moderator dan Mbak Melissa ya. I've already give the answer directly in the chat box, but I will also try to answer it later. So it's very interesting question, and it's really a major issue about how to develop herbal medicine in Indonesia. Because like I mentioned before, one of my concern of learning from the pandemics, some of the herbal medicine which is somehow took a great attention from the community. It's the herbal products from imported from China and also from other countries. And actually, that's really concerned me a lot. Why? Because actually we have so much of the potential, but in the case of emergency, we still have to import herbal medicine, which actually we can easily find even in our home yard. So I think it's essential for us to collaborate. It's a collaboration. It's some major issues in Indonesia. It's not easy to collaborate even between a research institution. So therefore, I encourage for us all to collaborate, to do some research, and even it has to also strong support the pentahelix integrated collaboration. Why? Because I also learned from our pandemic situation. If you, I think everyone has already well aware about this eucalyptus essential oils. What's the issue about how it's used? Actually, maybe it's quite effective in some way, but because it's not properly introduced or educate well, so some people use it it's not really in a good way, because they think there are some overclaim products at the time regarding herbal medicine. So, but fortunately, actually, our government has already taken action, quite significant action regarding the urgency of collaboration in the term of herbal medicine development. So there are some research funding already provided, which has to comprise of not only academicians or researchers, but also from it has to comprise from the industrial part, and also from the community. It's I think you heard about matching fund or kedai reka at this time. It's I think it's quite interesting to utilize that offer to also do some research, which not only in upstreaming research or very dasar begitu, tetapi hilirisasi or downstreaming research. I think the government also already provide some facilities for the small enterprises to able to produce and register their herbal products easily, but more easy, I mean, with some incentive and also facilities. I think that's also will be some good sign of collaboration, signal of collaboration, with good collaboration between the industry and the community, and also the government. But also the media support is really important about to not only spread the news based on the like or dislike, but it should also come from legitimate or valid information or source person. I think that's my answer. I hope it's answered the question. Mbak Melissa, again, thank you to moderator.
Thank you, Professor Triana, for the answer. The next question, we still have one question for Professor Sarifa and also one question for Jenny. Next question is from Amanda. The question is to Professor Sarifa. Strengthening the health system is not only the mandate of the government or health workers, but also the role of the community. What can the community do to help the government face the health problems? Thank you.
Thank you. Terima kasih. Amanda, yeah, it is not easy because by right, every healthcare system in any country, they need to work together with the community. Without the community working together, it is very difficult for any country, for any healthcare system to work together. The issue is that, is the community engagement strong enough for it to actually make an impact to the policy? That's one of the problems. And one of the main reasons is because it depends on how much the government actually looks at the community. So for my personal opinion is that the community needs to work together, meaning that if we have societies, it becomes stronger. So let's say you have a society for, let's say, perinatal care or pediatric or elderly population or things like that. So you have an NGO or a CSO, some sort of society that actually can be brought up. The voices become stronger because you have volume. It is different if you just make a complaint, so you just go as a statistic, it will be thrown down the drain because it doesn't bring your voice as the part of the population. So we highly encourage, if they are a part of a group, example, disabled children or things like that, they are able to form some sort of voice, meaning that they either make a formal society registered with the government or things like that, or it can be an informal sector, a society, but they are able to bring their voices. And when they bring their voices, meaning that they have to invest in time, resource, they have to attend meeting, put their foot down. It doesn't have to be, in a volatile manner, but you still have to speak up, as part of your community members and say that this is what you represent. So that brings the voice up, and this is very important. If not, basically the community are not able to voice out their concerns and their issues. And again, feedbacks are very important. The government needs to learn and provide, not only give services, but they need to receive the feedback from the population. And some of governments do that very actively, and either through the forms or some sort of tools or questionnaires or things like that. And some they write reports or aduan or things like that, complaints and so forth. And that's very good so that you can give feedbacks to the community. So this is very important. In most society nowadays, especially the more developed the society is, that community engagement become very stronger. In certain population, depending on whether you're low income and things like that, that role is being diminished because you have to compete for basic Maslow's need, basically, water and things like that. So that depends on country's position. Again, these are some of the rules that can be used, I suppose, for the community members to actually put up their issues and so forth. So this is important. Government, of course, in principles, government should hear what the community has to say, and the community engagement is very important. Only then, whatever service or things that has been implemented, some interventions, some programs, only then you are able to see and improve based on the community engagement and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sarifah, for the answer. And the last one is a question for Jenny. I think this question is interesting. The question coming from Agape, and he asks about how America as developed country face the crisis like COVID, because our experience is the same with Malaysians experience. We were not ready for the crisis, so we want to hear from America's perspective. Yes, please.
Very, very good question. I would say, just like Malaysia and Indonesia and many other countries, we also were very unprepared. The crisis showed us how unprepared we were. It showed us how little investment we have put as a nation historically into the strengthening of public health systems, the strengthening of stockpiling things like masks and gloves, so that just like in many other countries in the world, when the pandemic started, all of those kinds of resources had to be used and kept for the healthcare professionals. We were told to use different kinds of masks that people knew were not so effective, but it was because they had to be kept for the health professionals who were directly facing these many, many COVID patients. I think there were many, many lessons that were learned. We learned that we have a great deal of reliance on other countries. Other speakers have talked about the reliance on China and India for the production of not only masks and respirators, but also pharmaceuticals and drugs for dealing with COVID. The United States was no different. We needed them. We needed to very quickly try to produce our own. But that was proving to be a period of time. We also had a federal government and a president of the United States who was completely in denial about the severity of the pandemic. Of course, this did not help when the highest level of government officials were not in recognition of what was happening. So it was a very difficult time, as in many countries. So please do not think that because America is quote, the developed country, that we were immune from any of these kinds of challenges. We also had people who, because once the vaccinations were available, because they were authorized through an emergency use authorization and not through the normal process of a long time of clinical trials, that it was rushed to go out to the public. There were many people who were very concerned about that, and they were concerned that there was a lack of information, a lack of scientific backing and research to help us understand long-term effects. Of course, we know that there were many long-term effects, long-haul COVID, which was very, very severe. And we also had an entire faction in the United States that was very anti-vaccination. Anything that had to do with the public protection was not considered important by a minority of Americans, but in fact, there were people who believed that their individual rights far exceeded the community's concern for community health. And that, of course, was something that was very disturbing in many sectors. There were people who would actively not wear masks and didn't think that this was anything legitimate medically whatsoever. So we had, and we continue to have, lots of dialogue that is difficult. And I go back to both Dr. Triana and Sharifa's admonition for everybody to work collaboratively, that these issues cannot be resolved by government alone. They cannot be resolved by individuals alone. The learning must be shared, and frankly, the learning globally. What Taiwan did, what Indonesia did, what Malaysia did, and all of these principles that help to create this kind of resilience in the face of a tremendous challenge is the only way that we are going to have global learning and address global pandemics. We need much more than the WHO. We need true and genuine collaboration across sectors and across countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for the answer. And it means that even though America is a developed country, America also faces the same problem as Indonesia and Malaysia as well. Thank you, Jenny. So in summary, actually the questions is already closed because the time is up for our panel discussion, everyone. Yeah. And I would like to summarize from our presentations from all the speakers that actually the crisis is faced by the world, and the world were not ready for a crisis. Therefore, we have to work together to overcome and to prepare ourselves to future vulnerabilities. Therefore, we have to work hand in hand in the future. Thank you very much. And the next session is giving the certificate to all the panelists. The first one, the first certificate will be delivered to Professor Triana. We are waiting for the certificate and taking the photo together. This is the certificate dedicated for Professor Triana Hertiani. Say cheese and we take a picture. Okay, the next one, certificate to, maybe the Jenny should be deleted, but we can edit it later,
Okay,
Jenny.
that's fine.
So this is a certificate for Jenny. Please give a big applause. And the last one is certificate for Professor Sarifa Ezatwan Putih. Please give big applause as well.
Thank you.
And thank you very much to all the panelists for sharing their inspirational knowledge in this seminar. It was an honor to have you on the panel, and we know your time is precious, and we are immensely grateful you were able to give out some time with us. Thank you for helping make this seminar a great success. Thank you. And we look forward to working with you in the future events of Cendekia Utama Kudus Health and Technology events. Thank you very much. And I also would like to thank much for everyone who are coming directly in this room and also coming us virtually. And I hope that we can meet in person one day in Kudus. To Professor Sarifa and also Jenny, maybe one day we can invite you directly here in Kudus.
Yes, yes.
We do hope so. And
Hope so. Thank you.
And I'm Indri, as a moderator, saying thank you to everyone and sending best regards to you from Kudus, Indonesia. With the last sentence, I want to say, let's recover together, recover stronger. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And I will give back the session to MC. Sekar, time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Indiri. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of this remarkable international conference. Let us close this event with reciting Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. I hope you have enjoyed the stimulating presentations, insightful discussions, and fruitful collaborations that took place over the day. I would like to thank all the speakers, sponsors, organizers, and participants for making this event a success. As we bid farewell to each other, I hope you will take away some valuable insights, new connections, and lasting memories from this conference. I wish you all a safe journey back home and look forward to seeing you again at the next edition of this conference. Thank you and goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
For the participants, please kindly join the oral presentations of the first Cendekia International Conference via Zoom meeting at 1 p.m.
The last one is that don't forget to take up photos together, because it's a great opportunity for us to have a picture with Jenny and also Prof. Sarifa, because we can't come to Malaysia and the US, so maybe via Zoom is the best solution. So everyone say cheese and we are going to take a photo. One, two, three. Please be ready. Again. Please turn on your video so your face, your beautiful face, your handsome face will be shown. Nah, that's great. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you everyone. And please don't forget to absent for the public to get your certificate. You can contact the committee of this event. And thank you everyone. To all the speakers, you can leave the Zoom, but maybe for all the participants who want to take a picture again, we will still welcome to take a picture in front of the stage. Nyun pangapunten kepada Bapak Rektor ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus beserta jajaran serta Bapak Ibu dosen dan panitia seminar, dipersilahkan untuk foto bersama.
Cita-cita menjadi tenaga kesehatan profesional, kampus yang fokus dalam pengembangan sumber daya manusia di bidang kesehatan. ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus memiliki jurusan kesehatan dengan semua program studi yang telah terakreditasi B. Program studi yang ada: pendaftaran mahasiswa baru melalui jalur program prestasi dan jalur reguler, jalur program seleksi siswa berprestasi atau PSSB, syarat pendaftaran PSSB, PSSB.
Bu Nur Faida, monggo. Monggo Bu. Mari Bu, saya temani.
Syarat pendaftaran jalur reguler. Jadwal pendaftaran. Beasiswa bagi calon mahasiswa baru. Pendaftaran dapat dilakukan melalui online di pendaftaran offline bertanggal bertempat di kampus ITK Cendekia Utama Kudus di Jalan Lingkar Kudus Padi, kilometer 5 Desa Jepang, Kecamatan Monjobo, Kabupaten Kudus, Jawa Tengah. Mendapatkan dukungan penuh dari Yayasan Islam An-Nabil Kudus, ITK Cendekia Utama memiliki tenaga pengajar yang profesional dengan latar belakang berpendidikan S3 dan S2. Memiliki fasilitas yang sangat baik dengan kelas ber-AC, laboratorium keperawatan, laboratorium farmasi, laboratorium kesehatan masyarakat, taman baca, perpustakaan, home theater, aula, masjid, lapangan olahraga, dan fasilitas pendukung lainnya. Untuk menggali potensi yang dimiliki oleh mahasiswa, terdapat organisasi badan eksekutif mahasiswa dan unit kegiatan mahasiswa seperti seni dan olahraga, pecinta alam, KSN, dan unit kegiatan mahasiswa lainnya.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sehat sejahtera untuk kita semuanya. Perkenalkan, saya Imam Subuhi, alumni Prodi Keperawatan, Nurse, Institut Ilmu Kesehatan Cendekia Utama Kudus. Institut Ilmu Cendekia Utama Kudus memberikan warna yang indah dalam hidup saya, memberikan satu peningkatan pengetahuan, pengalaman, serta kompetensi keperawatan yang luar biasa. Didukung dengan tenaga pendidik dan pengajar yang handal dan profesional, mencetak tenaga kesehatan yang handal, siap kerja, membangun kesehatan masyarakat di Indonesia. Oleh karena itu, mari bergabung.
Siapa kita? Integras kita mau, kita bisa, pasti bisa. Tepuk tangan dulu.
Dosen IPI loh ya, nggak dosen bahasa Inggris, dosen dosen bahasa Inggris kenapa? Ibu? Ya harus, iya dibantu, tapi dosen maksudnya saya udah mikir siapa kan? Iya. Saya sudah ada pandangan, Bu. Saya sudah ada. Siapa taksi? Nanti